Hey, nothing is better than a hot cup of coffee and investigating the great lessons of the Bible. And do I hear a recording contract in someone's future?
With singing the best of Neil Sedaka. Oh my gosh, that was a long time ago. I didn't realize that song was so old. I was going, wow, I remember my mother used to sing that to us, and I was singing it to the children today. You know, march, I'm gonna march you down the aisle. April, you're the Easter bunny. I can go all the way through to December. And you are underwhelmed, right? As my father would say, Deborah, I'm very underwhelmed. How was your week, sir? Did you have a good week this week, or what?
I did. There's a melody there. Yes, I had a great week. I had a phenomenal week. I did a little riding, went to a reunion, recovered from all of the riding today because the weather was pretty warm, in the L.A. basin. And I think I did my normal about between 15 and 20 miles, but the weather was rather hot. It was about 90-plus degrees. So that was pretty much it for me, but it was great. Everything was just fantabulous.
Well, I have some good news for you. Your BTR son sent
My son? Yes, please. Let's hear what happened.
He sent us a video on YouTube, and I waited until tonight to preview it, and it looks like, from what I can tell, it is something to do with when I clicked it, which I'm clicking it again as we speak, it says...
The characters and events of the Bible.
It says, now you're going to have to help me with this word, Gnosis, the secret gate to the Garden of Eden. Gnosis. Are you familiar with that, sir?
Gnosis? I believe that's Gnosis or Gnosis.
I don't know. And I thought, wow. And he just sent it to me on Thursday, and I thought, wow. It's not, well, it's a little bit long, but it's an audio. And I thought, how interesting. I thought maybe we would look that up or see what's going on with it, but...
Debbie, I believe that's the Greek word for knowledge. If I hear now, I don't know. Do you hear? Am I coming in okay? If not, I'm going to fire my my company. But can you hear me fairly well?
I can hear you wonderfully. You're the same old guy now tonight again. Did you hear?
Okay,
did you get to hear the replay last week and how horrible it was?
Well, yeah, I know there was a lot of cutting in and out, but usually that's obviously beyond our control. And it may have been connected with BTR. You never know. Normally I get very decent service. But anyway, that sounds like, it sounds as if you were pronouncing the word gnosis, and that's the Greek word for knowledge. Like agnostic, that gnosis is in there.
Gnosis, the secret gate to the Garden of Eden. And the little blip says, this documentary is about the knowledge behind the Garden of Eden. Interesting, huh?
Yes, sure.
Aren't you proud of him, though, at all?
Well, I need to hear the content.
Oh. Well, instead of us bloviating, we could listen to just a wee bit of this, shall we? Maybe to see what it's about, perhaps, or no?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Are we sure? I don't like your fine. We can let it wait.
Look, I leave it up to you. You're the captain. You know what attracts the greatest audience. You're the expert.
Right.
Sure, I'm willing to hear it.
We're not going to listen to the whole thing, but let's just listen to see what it is. Let's start it right now in 3, 2, 1, everybody. This looks like it's going to be really, really good, but I'll tell you what I think I'm going to do. I'll ask Mr. Salush if he can come back a special night, and we will just we'll just jump into this with both feet and see what this is. What do you think? Sound good?
Yeah, actually that sounds like an excellent idea. And what you're doing, Debbie, you have inspired people to go beyond their normal limits to actually start looking into this information. This is phenomenal information.
I would like to just open with a brief recap here, and we dealt with Genesis 1, which dealt with creation and the beginning of all time, the beginning of everything, time, space, matter, motion, and energy. Also, chapter 2, we look at the marriage of Adam and Eve in paradise. Chapter 3, we basically have the picture of the horrible fall that brought death, confusion, and evil within the human realm. And, of course, one point here, I was just reviewing the opening verse of chapter 3. And although the Bible it's a phenomenal book, obviously, but it gives us the Reader's Digest version. It doesn't give us everything that went on. But Debbie, in concurrence with or concurrent with what you said last time regarding women, Eve was no slouch. She had a greater intellect than any man living today, or any man that has passed away. The thing is that she was responsible. But this serpent here is a phenomenal being also, and it talks about it being more crafty than any of the other animals. This serpent, I would say, was just below humans. It was. This is not just a regular creature by any means. This is and the scriptures call it, the serpent was more crafty. The King James says subtle, which are synonymous words, but it has to do with ingenuity, plotting, and planning. This was no ordinary, just, slithering snake. And the thing of it is that this particular being was speaking, unlike any other animal. So I can see where Eve's attention would have been arrested, and there would have been great interest, but nevertheless, it did spark greed in her, and of course she acted out of turn. That is a very, very important, marker. And of course she should have just sought information. That's the solution here. She should have just asked for advice. She had a contradiction. Go ahead.
Nothing. I'm listening. Keep going.
Okay, I heard a sound. She had a contradiction, and at a point, when you're at a crossroads, especially one of this magnitude, seek advice. Seek advice. That is the advice, the overarching takeaway that we get here. Don't just do something stupidly or greedily, okay, or haphazardly. And that's what she did. And, of course, it was just a snowball effect. So, of course, we have the fall of man, and I call it the epic. It's the most horrible thing in human history, by the way, because it ruined it for all of us, not just those two, but us also. And, of course, in chapter 4, we have the first murder, Cain slaying Abel. And initially, let me say chapter 5 really put a face on the awfulness of the disobedience of both Eve and Adam, and that was death. We see all these people, although they live great ages, death. And the thing about death is death interrupts your plans, your desires, your interests. Even if you die at a ripe old age, if you could live longer, you would, especially if you were healthy. So death is the great separator, the great interrupter. It interrupts your plans. That's what it ultimately does. And so this is what we're looking at. And now we are about to look at, we often think about crime in our modern day scenarios, in our modern, these people, although they lived great ages, now they were really into crime. And we're going to call it wickedness, evil, and we're going to see that this reaches the attention of God. This evil is so horrific that it reaches God's attention, and we're going to obviously look at the deluge or the flood, the great flood of the past. So we're in chapter 6 now. We left off at chapter 5. And just a brief correction here. Last time I referenced the earth, and I was just talking about the spectacular design of the earth. And I made mention that the earth, it both rotates and revolves. It rotates at about 1,040 miles per hour, and that gives us our day-night cycle. So that's really fast. We don't feel it because obviously the momentum, and we were born on the earth, so we were, and gravity keeps us firmly in place, that physical principle. And it actually rotates or orbits the sun at 67,000 miles per hour, and that gives us our annual cycle, 365 days in a year, 366 in a leap year. So the earth is very finely tuned, and it's a spaceship. There's no lesser explanation of the earth than it being a marvelous biosphere that is a spaceship. So at any rate, I just wanted to reference that. And we can hop right into chapter 6 whenever you're ready, Debbie.
Genesis 6. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart were only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. I'm going to bring flood waters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens, every creature that has the breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. Noah did everything just as God commanded him.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Roger, can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Yeah, look, I want to go to the theme, the antecedent theme that is leading up to this, and the motivation for God taking the action that God took. And we must say God is the landlord. God is the creator. If we understand this correctly, and even for people who don't believe in God, they believe the earth created itself, which is an illogical possibility, but nevertheless, God is the landlord, and the antecedent motivation for God's actions are in verse 5. It said, the Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Now, most people just glide right past that because they're anxious to accuse God, but you can't ever accuse God. I mean, ultimately, the most you can do is be in league with God. Now, the thing he's saying here, which most of us can hardly imagine, we live in relative peace. These were truly bad people. And I might add, they were all vegetarians. But at any rate, the thing is that it's hard for me to fathom, this thought pattern and modus operandi. And their favorite thing to do was to murder their neighbor. That was their favorite thing to do, is to slaughter their neighbor. And they did this for literally, hundreds of years. And, of course, God just got sick of it. He said they would not obey him. And you notice it talks about how God's Spirit strived with man and contended with man, that is, trying to get man to do what's right. And man just refused to do it. Now, this Nephilim, a lot of people talk about this. I don't like to go to seed on it, but they're called the sons of Anak, and evidently some of that gene survived the flood, actually, because King Og, I believe he was listed at about 12 feet tall, and, of course, Goliath, who was about 10 feet tall. These were huge people, and they were just people bent on wickedness. What did Goliath do? Curse God for 40 days. I mean, he was the quintessential bad guy. So at any rate, it talks about the Nephilim being on the earth, and apparently there was an interbreeding, and but whatever happened from that interbreeding, it was not good with these fallen beings. They had some sort of supernatural orientation, apparently. But they were very wicked, and the human race was polluted and infiltrated, apparently. And murder, like I say, murder was their favorite sport. That was their favorite pastime, murder. And it says in verse 6, the Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. Now, obviously, this is anthropomorphism. This is God speaking to us in our language, which is really, wonderful, because we need to hear how God feels in our language. And that's exactly what's occurring here. It says, so the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals. Now, see, all the animals had to suffer, too, because of the dysfunction and horrific behavior of human beings, because God put man over the animals. They were entrusted to man. And it says, for I regret that I have made them. And we see this wonderful light of hope here. It says, but Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So that's a tremendous thing right there. So any comments as to why this flood happened?
Yeah, he wanted to nuke them and start all over. That's a family joke of ours. There's a famous video. No, there's a famous video where my father had just got this stupid video camera, and he thought he was a big shot. He goes, Deborah, go over there and film everybody on the golf course. So I walk up to my Uncle Edward, and I said, Uncle Edward, hi. He goes, hello. I said, I would like to know, what would you like to do about the traffic problems on 635 South? And he said, I would nuke them and start over. And for some reason, that just goes through my family tree as one of the funniest things ever said. So that's why I said shouts out to you, Uncle Edward, who is now with the dead, in the afterlife. He said, I would nuke them and start over. We want to touch back a little bit, Mr. Salush, on, well, I just think that he was fed up with their crap. I mean, they were horrible. They were maybe that was the caveman days. I mean, they were horrible. They were just terrible people. You know, they were it wasn't the days of the where they fed them to the lions and stuff. It was just, you know, I have the feeling they walked around with a big club and bashed each other on the head all the time. No, they were very mean. Humans at their core existence, we now know. We'd love to do that sometimes, boy, wouldn't know. But we just don't, because we are more cultured and we are under, you know, we just know better than that. This is before the law of Moses. This is before any law. It was just like throwing a bunch of 4-year-olds in the middle of a room with a bunch of toys and a bunch of Kool-Aid and a bunch of cookies and leaving them in there for 3 days. They would just go nuts. You know, and that's basically what you're looking at. Again, like I said, they had the mind of a child. They didn't know any better.
Well, no. I would look. These people were brilliant because they were closer to creation. They were brilliant. They lived to be great ages. I mean, we just left off here where it said where they were living 160 years and then having kids.
What gives you the idea that they're brilliant? And I'm not being, you know, I'm never disrespectful to you. I'm absolutely curious.
Oh, because they were, right, and that's a good question. They were closest to creation. So they were closest to the perfect genetic code. They were brilliant because they were smart. They were, but they used it for evil purposes. That was the whole point. You know, we talk about cave people, and there's always been cave people. There are cave people right now. But that never encompassed all of humanity. It never did, never has. We see humanity comes from a regal origin, God himself. Man was created in God's.
Mr. Solution, in all honesty, though, I've got to speak up and say that I think that there could be cave people because, you know, when you're out in survival mode, the first thing you get is shelter and then water and, you know, like that. They would have to maybe find caves to dwell in. I mean, they certainly they weren't industrial enough to build a home out of, you know, whatever. I mean, we're not even to the Bronze Age yet. I beg to differ with you. I mean, that it could have been that this was maybe somewhat of not. I mean, I don't know. I just argue with you a little bit on that.
Yeah, and I think it's great. I love it when we have this back and forthness. I think it's so great. Well, remember last time, and the Bible is obvious at some points, but it's kind of subtle too, I guess, in its brevity. Remember, we had people engaging in the arts. We had Lamech, for example.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
You're right.
We did have, and these people were aware of riches. So I would say, and remember, they were kicked out of Eden. They were kicked out of paradise, and I'm sure they mimicked that. So they knew how to build. These were not unintelligent people under any circumstances. And they were not naive either. They did what they did in blatant oppositions to God's, revealed standards. And that's why they encumbered the punishment that they did. They were, when it says here, I go back to verse 5, the Lord saw how great the wickedness. See, you really can't do wicked along the lines of what's being spoken of here. This is intelligent wickedness. This is not just stupid.
Well, how would they even know how would they even know what wicked is? They don't know the difference between. How do they know they're not supposed to kill each other if somebody looks at you wrong? I mean, I'm really challenging you tonight. But
no, that's fine. Remember, these people, and we have to. Okay, one of our problems is thinking that we maintain the repository on human brilliance, intelligence. That's a fallacy. And just studying a little bit of history, whether it's archaeology, paleontology, so forth, and so on, we understand there have been great civilizations, and this was one of them. And the fact that they knew they were created in God's image, but they didn't care. They knew metallurgy. They knew the arts. These people they never had a cold day. Remember, they had never even experienced rain. The thing of it is, these people still lived in a relatively perfect environment, very accommodating. They had all the food at their disposal. Sure, they had to do a little bit of work, but so what? So this is really... Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to interrupt you a little bit for a second and tell you that I have on the phone with us a archaeology student from the University of Southern California, Cal State University. He's an archaeology student, and his name is Mark. Did you say Mikhail? Mikhail. Boy, I really blew that, didn't I? And then Jay has something to say about the, my words are horrible tonight, the tall people, the big people, the fallen angels. And so what did you have to add, area code 909, Mikhail?
To explain, to go back on with Dr. Brilliant, am I getting his name right? Dr.
Brilliant, Mr. Solution. I love that.
Mr. Solution. It's my apology. When we look at the study of anthropology, for example, and the early Western social sciences and liberal studies and so forth, what we see is a issue with science and religion, whereas the two didn't seem to see eye to eye simply because religion was giving a time date for human existence going back 6,000 years. And science going back, saying that modern humans can be found, 200,000 years, with the brain capacity we have now, with the same social functioning as we do now. To settle that dispute, science and religion now support one another. So, for example, you have biblical sites like Jericho that's being defined and being excavated in terms of the science of archaeology. The problem with that is, the science of anthropology is just generally the study of mankind. We assess these studies through culture, linguistics, which is language, biological variations, and archaeology. When studying mankind and the progression of mankind in terms of going, like you were saying earlier, cavemen, to bring clarity to that issue, we have to present a timeline or a chronology. Certain people did experience what you said earlier, a cave period and so forth, and others didn't, as the brother had indicated after your comments. But the problem that seems to be existing is that the human mind, when you study psychology, for example, the mind would defend itself. So, for example, if the mind is curious about, for example, a certain aspect of history, if that history is not found, to defend itself, the mind will even assess mythology as history. For example, when we look at the culture of the Western 1800s, the cowboy eras, and we see the war with Indians and so forth, like we've watched on Bananas and so forth, that's a mythology, because that is not how the people interacted socially, politically in that time frame. And one of the issues with people with religion, because, I can never debate anyone's faith, because belief to belie is, my definition of it is, it can be used as a justified lie. For example, I can believe that the sky is red, and because I have this certain belief, people who are my friends or family, they will have to have a respect for that, even though they know that the sky is blue.
All right, but let me stop you right there and interrupt you and say, but as many photographs as we have of the, as you called it, the cowboy Indian days, the law west of the Pecos, back when the West was one, we had a lot of historical documents to document that. I don't really see that as a myth. I mean,
okay. When I say, I apologize for not explaining. When we see, like, for example, the quick draw, that type of cultural context, where we see, if a man had a issue with another man, he would call him out and they would have a shootout, for example. Even though they had free use of guns in that time, even in historical documents, as you state, we don't see high numbers of murders going on in this issue. In fact, we see lower numbers. People had more guns than they had now, and we see lower issues of murder, for example. So that's a fallacy. Now, to get clarity to the issue, because, I'm trying to, this is the first time I've listened to you guys' show, and,
right.
We all have something to bring to the table. What is the characteristics, for example, of a God to be considered the Most High?
Mr. Solution?
I asked that question. Yes, I asked that question because as the brother was reading from the Bible, he stated that God regretted creating man. That means he made a mistake. To my knowledge, God is not in need of anything. God doesn't need sleep. He doesn't get weak or tired, because that will say that there's a limit to his power. Would you agree?
Mr. Solution, are you there? Mr. Solution, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Look, let me deal with one thing at a time. I want to get back to there's this common thought process that we are the originators of all things modern. Now, I'm just going back and I'm looking in chapter 4 of Genesis, and we're looking here. Now, most of us who are on the air right now have not founded a city. I know it's not that we haven't done some good things, but we didn't do that. Now, it says here in Genesis 4:17, and I'm picking up at the second sentence here, it says, Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. So that's very definitive information here. Cain built a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. And then it says in verse 19, Zillah also had a son, Tubal-Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. Now, most of us who use tools, and I do extensively, I haven't, for necessarily created a tool. I buy my tools. And so the thing of it is, we have here some very important statements that are being made. The founding of cities, and here's another one here where it talks about one of the gentlemen farmed livestock, raised livestock. And, most of us aren't aware of what it takes for us to really live on. In one way, that's good because it shows how efficient our society has become. But I was looking at a documentary one time where they took some kids out of the city into the country, and they found some milk bottles, and they said, "Oh, here is where a cow laid milk eggs or something." Now we laugh at that, but that was just their lack of knowledge as to where milk comes from. And so I think most of us are just not aware of some of the great things that have occurred in the past. We don't talk about it. It's not taught to us. But we should not think that, great things started with us. They haven't. Things have come in and gone out and redone and, recaptured. I mean, civilizations, when there's not overt war, people have done tremendous things in the arts in terms of building and in terms of farming, this sort of thing. And that's why I say that when you read the scriptures, not super carefully, but just basically, you see a high level of development and intelligence. And just imagining that these people were closest to the unpolluted, obviously Adam and Eve sinned, but even after they sinned, they still had a very strong constitution, human constitution. What did Adam live? 930 years. And so, as I pointed out, conditions were favorable. They had the mental capacity, and these people did tremendous things. And unfortunately, they used most of their power to do wickedness, and that was the problem. Now, with the gentleman that just came on, and I know he probably hasn't studied theology, but when you engage in any discipline, you have to understand the jargon and the rules of that discipline. So when God said it repented him or hurt him, he regretted that he had created man, that's not speaking in absolute terms about God. As we opened with discussing this, we said God was speaking anthropomorphically. That is,
now you've made a good point, brother, because
let me just
in a different context, you can use anthropomorphic
wait. Excuse me.
reasoning,
let me just
but you will be
my
considered.
point here. He was speaking to man in man terms. God has a language, obviously, but you or I couldn't understand it. Most of us, especially Americans, don't speak, other than one language because we really don't have to. Now, some people consider us arrogant, et cetera, but nevertheless, it's not offered to us in school in most cases. So therefore, when it says, and I just want to set this straight, I'm not arguing, I don't want to get off on one of these rabbit trails, nonsensical arguments, but I just want to say it very lucidly. That is not speaking about a weakness in God. God is just using human language to communicate human reality. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. I just have a question because in terms of context and how we use certain jargon words and dealing with certain disciplines, when we study the science of theology, which is theory, which is idealism, which is social construction, would you agree?
I would agree.
For example, right? We have most people, regardless of race or culture, when you're dealing with elders, to convey meaning or to give you an example of how certain things function, they tell stories, for example, right? Now, in school, we were taught fairy tales, and then we were then told to look at the morale of the story. For example, we're all familiar with the boy that cried wolf, right? What was the moral of the story? Don't fake calling for help, because when you're really in help and you're calling, no one will come to your aid because you've played with, tricking people that you were in help and then mocking them, laughing at them, and so forth. Now, the boy don't have to exist, neither does the wolf, as long as you get the meaning. So I can tell you a story using mythological or fake people to convey a certain meaning or explain a certain, ideology or certain moral. But if you don't understand the moral of the story and you look for the fictional characters, then you haven't learned the moral of the story at all. Meaning.
Well,
you have people,
I'm listening. I'm listening.
You have people who are literally looking for the big wolf and the boy instead of looking at the context of watching what you consider to be an emergency and screaming for help. Am I making sense? For example, the Bible is considered to be the greatest story ever told. What comprises a story? People, places, times, events, themes, and settings, and so forth, right? Now, a lot of people will argue, well, these people didn't exist. That's fine. They don't have to exist because the Bible is written in the form to be a standard to govern morality, right? when we're speaking of things of wickedness, people doing bad things, this is a moral issue.
All right, let me just proceed with this briefly.
Wow.
Here. What happens is in chapter 6, we see the wickedness progressing, and we see in verse 6 of chapter 6, the Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. And verse 7 says, "So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them." But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So God is going to salvage a remnant of the human population. Now, we're going to see that everybody had a chance to get on that ark. They didn't choose to do it, but they had an opportunity to be saved, okay? And the fact of it is they made a choice. They made a choice to defy God, their creator, and their landlord. And so, when you choose to do wrong, as was true then, as is true now, there are consequences. We don't like to talk about consequences, especially if we disagree with them. But there are consequences. So we're going to see the consequence of this very bad behavior. In verse 9 it says, "This is the account of Noah and his family." And by the way, when one reads a book, most authors let you know their intention, whether they're writing this, prose poetry, or whether it is an actual account. The scriptures are written as an actual historical account from God's point of view. And it says here in verse 9, is there something being said? I just heard a trickle of voice.
Yeah. I was just saying that's really the problem, because a book that was created to maintain and to properly govern human morality has then somehow shifted to being a historical. So that means that people are really looking for these actual events, and the problem is that they're just not finding them. And that's not even the case. If we stick to the, like you said earlier, the anthropomorphical definitions and the metaphors of the Bible to govern morality, then we would have a shift, and we would see the theology being used as it was intended.
All right, it says in verse 9, had you finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In verse 9 it says, "Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God." Noah had 3 sons, and it gives you the names of these sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And it says, it repeats it. Remember, the Bible is a legal book. If nothing else, it's called the Old Testament, and of course we have the New Testament. So it is a legal book. It is very much that. And it says here,
question, why this is for being a legal book? Can you explain that?
Okay, allow me to finish with it. It pretty much is. It's pretty much axiomatic. Here comes the indictment in verse 11. "Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence." Okay, now this violence is against whom? Debbie, are you there? Are you present with me? Hello? Debbie?
Debbie?
Hello?
Go ahead, brother. She's probably
No, I'm trying to get Debbie because it's Debbie, are you there? I hate it when she leaves the room.
Hello?
Yes. Hello?
Hello, Debbie, can you hear me?
Mega Rock.
Go ahead, Mr. Solutions. That's why I think she has you as a co-host, because you're able to facilitate, if she has to,
Well, hold on for 1 second, sir. I'm just trying. Debbie, can you hear me? Anyway, in verse 11 it says, "Now the earth was corrupt in the sight of God and was full of violence." Debbie, when you get a chance, come back on and stay with us if at all possible. it says, continuing on in verse 12, hello? God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. And what people don't understand oftentimes in their haste to try and blame God is that this violence was against other people. The violence was against other people. And so that's the indictment.
I'm on mute, so I don't know what that is. I
hate it when you leave the room. What I was going to ask you in verse 11, I was talking about the legality. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I didn't leave the room. I've been sitting here just listening to every word.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I was calling out to you, and for whatever reason.
I'm sorry. I was changing my headphones. I'm sorry.
Okay, fine. Look, in verse 11, see, people are often very quick to try and indict God. And what they miss is what's actually occurring. In verse 11, and I'll read it, it says, now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. Now, I'll just ask you, against whom was this violence being committed?
One another.
Another. The violence was against other human beings. So people who automatically jump on God really don't care about people. They're just trying to attack God. And by the way, you can't attack God. God is unimpeachable. You can't impeach God. You can't subpoena God. And that's a very interesting point. But continuing on in verse 12, as I say, of this indictment, the legal charges, these are tantamount to legal charges that are being brought against these people. It says, verse 12, God saw how corrupt the earth had become, and that's morally corrupt, by the way, for all the people on the earth had corrupted their way. Now, that's a profound statement. And what we need to discern, is it true? If it's true, everybody was just killing everybody. They were committing acts of violence against each other. And, of course, they were committing acts of violence against God from a moral standpoint because God sees us. We're in his image. And we're not supposed to be committing crimes upon each other. And it says so, which is a coordinating conjunction. So God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all people. See? For the earth is filled with violence because of them. Now, God waited 120 years before he carried out the penalty. A lot of people miss that. It took Noah 120 years to actually fabricate the ark or construct the ark. And it says, I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. And he says in verse 14, so make yourself an ark of cypress wood. And he went through this, and he told him how to construct it, making the rooms and so on and so forth. And it says, I won't go into all the details. We've already read that. But this ark was sufficient for its purpose, and it was to salvage those who were worthy of being salvaged. And again, everybody could have gotten on that ark, but they didn't want to, as I said a moment ago. They chose not to. They would rather stay there and kill people. And God was just sick of this, and of course, God put an end to it. And so, Debbie, any comments at this particular point?
I have so many comments. I'm just going to keep them to myself for right now because I don't know. We've got some cool people in the chat room. Go ahead.
Well, you may want to let another. I mean, this caller is fine, but you may want to allow someone else an opportunity to voice a concern.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment real quick. This is Jay.
Oh, go ahead, Jay. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just heard the conversation between Mr. Solutions and Mekara, I think his name was, and it was similar to I guess you could say a college person on a doctor's degree talking to 12-year-old, based on the knowledge of the Bible. I think that,
who would be the 12-year-old? Who would be the 12-year-old?
Mr. Solutions will be the 12-year-old. Because I think what Mr. Solutions, he's looking at the story just as it is. I think Brother Mekarah knew the deeper meaning, and it's quite ironic because that's what you was playing with. Whoever gave you that thing I was going to get into with the gnosis, because the G is silent. The gnosis, that's what it's actually going to be talking about, understanding, and that's what it was talking about. Those people with the knowledge of the Bible, the real actual knowledge was hidden, in mythology. So I think that's what Brother Mekarah was talking about, because there's no way that you're going to put every animal on a boat, a literal boat. So it's like, it was kind of like a 12-year-old talking to a college student getting a doctor's degree on understanding the Bible. I just wanted to say that.
Okay, Debbie, let me say this, and then hopefully we can end this sort of thing. But what you have is nothing merging with something. And so the point you have here are people who really, they could expound and explain whatever it is that they want to. But generally, all they do is attack other people. They don't really present anything. It's just a bunch of gobbledygook. And oftentimes when you look at their lives, they're similarly in disarray. So my position of my being a 12-year-old is just that is a horribly stupid comment. And I wish that, and we can limit people's comments of that nature. We're studying this book. So if they don't have anything to contribute to the furtherance of the study of the book, maybe they just want to keep it to themselves. And that's what I would prefer. So what I'm doing here is I'm sharing a book that I consider very valuable along the moral plane. It's the instruction manual for humanity.
I didn't make those comments about you being a 6-year-old, so to put me and use the term they, to, I don't know who this guy's on the phone, he's just listening with his common mind. He made the comments he made, with his...
Right. No, I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying
I just don't want to put in a category. I'm not biased at all. I look for intelligence. I look for rationale. I look for logic.
Right. I'm just saying anyone who thinks like this. I'm not including you. I'm not castigating anybody, because my position, my reason for being here, I was invited to be here to do this, and that's why I'm here. I love doing this. I enjoy it, and when I can share on this level, that's what I do. And for the people who get something out of it, fine. Anyone can call in. We invite people to come in with their position. But just to attack someone on what they say is not a real position. It's a non-position. So continuing on here, he says...
I apologize if you took offense to it, but I was just, after hearing the dialogue, I wasn't really referring to you as a literal 12-year-old, but...
Right. No harm, no foul. Please allow me to continue with the exposition. Verse 18...
I can continue, brother. Continue.
In verse 18, God says... But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons, and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Now, again, historians can certainly trace this lineage back to Noah and his sons, and even before. These lineages are listed in the New Testament. And let me say, by the way, Christ, and I studied this somewhat carefully, never had a problem with the Scriptures at all. What he pointed out was the hypocrisy of the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, and the Herodians. Those were the so-called wolves of hate during Christ's time on earth. And their position was a financial position. They just wanted to fleece the people and they did not want to see the people free, and they had the people in bondage. But here, this is presented as a historical narrative, and that's the way I understand it. Continuing on here, in verse 19, he just tells Noah, he says, you are to bring into the ark of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you, 2 of every kind of bird, every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. So obviously this was supernatural here, where God put the knowledge in the animals to get on board that ark so they could be saved. And the interesting thing, it was the creatures with the breath of life. In other words, this wasn't fish or whales or these kind of animals that are adapted to the water. These were air-breathing, animals. And he says in verse 21, you are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. And obviously this is tremendous because provisions, not only their transportation, but also accommodation for their food needs are being made. So this is a fantastic thing here. And verse 22, of course, said, Noah, unlike all the other people of his day, did everything just as the Lord commanded him. And so I think that concludes chapter 6, and we're going to see the actual flood taking place. Debbie, are you there?
I'm right here. We have some people in the chat room that are nice people. I mean,
yeah, sure.
Adding to the thing. The way I want to say this is I'm going to say that some people teach straight off the word, okay? They teach straight off the word. They don't deviate off the word. Some people believe in God, believe in the Bible, but they will also deviate just a wee bit off of that, having studied maybe some different I'm lost for words. What's it called in college? You study not apologetics, but what's that word I'm looking for? Anyway, they study different
courses or resources. What?
Exactly. Yeah, like that. That's putting it fine. Okay. And so I believe that when we open up the lines for discussion, we are going to have people that are going to call in with different opinions. I mean, different. What was that word we were going to use? Not opinion, but yeah. And I welcome that. And I don't want to get. I personally don't want to get kind of snippy with them or ugly, and I don't want anybody to say that anybody's like a 12-year-old. I think it would have been better off to say that he looked at it more as a child would look at the Bible, to believe everything that happened in an awestruck sort of a way. And I have to admit that even I take it. That's just the way I was taught by my grandparents on both sides, to take it straight off the book. And I know that the book was written by men. I know that the book may not be 100%. Hold on. It may not be 100%. I mean, who knows, right? So I just want everybody to get along. Wow, the board is packed with people. I think this is you. Is this you into knowledge?
No, this is Mike. How you doing?
Hi, Mike. How are you? Oh, Allfax. Hi. I thought I was talking to my.
Yes. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I haven't.
Pretty good. Wonderful discussion. Wonderful show tonight.
Thank you. Area code 213. I'm going to get to you in just 1 second. Let me pick up 213. They've been on hold for 26 minutes. 213, you're on the air. That's Los Angeles.
I mean, hell, in my personal opinion, Vincent the Bay is a good piece of ass. Ghost.
That sounds like Brown Beasley.
No, it was Ghost. Ghost is trolling me tonight. I just put Ghost back on hold. Okay, what do you have to say tonight, Michael?
Well, for one, how you doing, Mr. Solution, and the other callers that's on the line? How you doing? I've been listening to you guys for a while. I definitely like to stay on topic. I would like to ask questions because, see, when someone reads the Bible and they're reading these words and they come and they say, this is what this means, they're trying to let me know something. And as a student who, the person is saying they're interpreting, I would just like to ask some questions. That's all. And then, questions should be, asked. Now, I've mentioned on my show a couple of times, Dad, and it's something that you said earlier. But, see, I think people get things twisted. See, the Bible has some factual information. And what you mean by, you said, oh, Mike, I can't believe you said that. I said, oh, I'm speaking fact. See, it's about how human beings treat each other. It's easy. Anybody can see that. It's a bad way to treat each other. But when they bring the philosophy and the theory in it, then that's when everything gets mixed up. Now, when you mix the theories and the philosophies and theologies with facts, how we treat each other, how we can clearly see, it gets twisted because it gets all confused and it gets rattled. And I think this is the problem with the gentlemen are trying to say when one of the gentlemen was saying, and this is simply what you're saying, everybody not believe. There's not no believing in me. I try to stay with the facts. Because, see, it's simply, and I want to go on, after I said that I want to address something to Mr. Solution. He kept on saying that they had a choice to whether to get on the boat or not. But, see, I was talking to Bible Benny the other day, and we were talking about John 3:6, about born of the flesh is of the flesh and born of the spirit. But, see, what gets confusing to a 12-year-old child that would be listening to this, okay, I just want to say this, is that those people were a part of God. Whether they chose, and the question is that the choices that this God make, we say that we have the choices, but if knowing all God that knows all the things, does he know the choices that people are going to make in? Is condemning someone to hell, is that morality? That's where it gets confusing.
Okay, is there a question in it? Hi, Mike, by the way. You didn't give me a chance.
How you doing?
But hello, and I hope your show is doing well. Haven't had a chance to listen to it lately, but at any rate, do you have a specific question that was raised in the text that you want to address?
The choice about morality, about God knowing the decisions that those people were going to make before they made it. Because, someone actually destroying people are dying and suffering, whichever caused the deity, that to me is immoral too. I'm looking at an immoral scene. Either way it goes. That's what because you brought that up. About choice and morality. But that's what I'm asking. Well, so you can answer any question that you want. I'm going to answer my question. You can answer any question that you want. But that's what I was talking about, the morality piece. How is that connection and the choices that God sees about it?
God did not create freedom of choice. That was something that was offered up by Satan, and man decided to take it. And they ate the apple off the tree.
That's a fallacy. That's a fallacy as well.
No, it's in the first book of the Bible. I linked that.
Right. I'm not repeating your reference. I'm saying, in context what the brother was just saying, in terms of morality.
The Bible is a historical manuscript.
We can all agree that we all have a piece of the puzzle. Can we all agree on that?
What you're saying is God meant to say this. And, I wish I could.
How do we get to that bigger piece of that puzzle? We have to study all aspects of humanity and how God has touched all people.
What does it have to do with humanity? We're talking about
we have to look past language and culture. For example,
solution.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example.
Solution. I have to apologize for one of my fellow listeners or callers. They were making some rude comment about how you're 12. How old are you actually? If you're comfortable answering that, probably 56, somewhere around there.
I don't know what you're talking about, but. Listen, I just wanted to chime in.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. You asked me my age, sir.
Yeah. I'm asking your age. You could just give me a ballpark number.
You're asking me my age? Right. What does that have to do with the conversation of the question?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm wondering, you claim to be this well-educated individual.
I never claimed that. When did I say that, sir? I never claimed it out. See, sir.
Well,
see, sir. What you just said. No. I never. Listen. What you just did is the problem of the world, sir. Listen. Listen. Right now. Okay, Jay. I'm be quiet. You're exposing yourself, Jay. So you just exposed yourself.
For a 12-year-old, you sound great and really well-spoken, but for a 49-year-old. You sound like a fucking illiterate retard. So, I mean, clearly you haven't ever been
right, but sir, but notice you can listen. You're very intelligent, me, but look where you're going. You can't have a dialogue and conversation and talk about the subject. And your person, no, look where your mind is. Look where your mind is. So you're not on the topic. You're personally attacking somebody, and you're the problem of the world. You have a psychological problem, sir. You're antisocial. We're dialoguing and asking questions. You are. Look at you. You're exposing yourself. Listen to him blog talk. He's exposing himself, Jay. You see him? He's like the doctor. Yes, thank you, Jay. See, we expose him every time.